right. First of all, I would like to say hi to all our viewers. And secondly, I would like to welcome Mira Dessy today, who is our first person to get interviewed by IPIT. She is an experienced nutritionist or holistic nutritionist and the ingredient guru. And why don't you tell you a little bit more about yourself? Because I think you do it a lot better than I do.
Thank you. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me here. I always love talking with you. So yes, my name is Mira Dessy. I am the ingredient guru. I am a holistic nutritionist. I'm also the author of The Pantry Principle, How to Read the Label and Understand What's Really in Your Food, which is part of why I love your company so much, because you help make it just a little bit easier for people to know what's in their food. And yeah, and so my philosophy is that it's not just what we eat, it's what's in we eat that impacts our health. And so
yeah. In today's society, we have a lot of stuff in our food. And that's why we actually wanted to get some really professional help for this holiday, which is a really nice holiday. But in this any holiday situation, would you have any suggestions that could be like avoiding any pitfalls at all as a person who's intolerant for something or allergic, or inviting, who is the host, people during the holidays?
Absolutely. And I think the biggest, most important thing is, if you have some sort of food sensitivity, don't be shy. Tell your host, because people who don't deal with food intolerances on a regular basis don't understand how significant they can be, and that there is a very real physical impact for people who consume those foods if their body does not tolerate them. So certainly be willing to speak up. And if you're the host, I always try to work extra hard. I try not to eat a lot of gluten, or have a lot of gluten in my home rather. And so when I have people over who do consume gluten, I try to make sure that our gluten-free options are extra tasty.
So right, that's a good suggestion, actually.
Yeah.
To get them on the other side.
Sure. And then the other is to, if you're going somewhere, to know what foods are most likely to have pitfalls in them, to be aware of. For example, Thanksgiving in America, a big thing that's on the table is canned cranberry sauce for some reason. Yeah. It's very easy to make your own, but a lot of people buy the jellied stuff in the can. And that is going to come with a lot of really negative ingredients in it. And so just to be aware of the food. I'm sorry?
Would you mention some of those ingredients that are good to avoid?
Oh, sure. So canned cranberry sauce frequently can have high fructose corn syrup in it, which is not a great choice. It's bad for your liver and high in fructose. Some of them, believe it or not, have artificial sweeteners in them, because people want their cranberry sauce, but they don't want the calories from the sugar. It also can have preservatives in it. Sodium benzoate or potassium benzoate is a possibility. So we just want to watch out for those. Those are some of the big ones.
And those are, I'm guessing, also in general something that you should watch out for.
Yes. So in general, I do suggest that people avoid artificial and this is in a general diet, not just in the holidays. Artificial sweeteners, artificial colors, artificial flavors. The word artificial is big. and high fructose corn syrup are very big ingredients that are found at holiday time.
Yeah. And also, if you have children and maybe they are starting going to their own parties or gatherings or whatever, could you say something? Do you have any thoughts or suggestions to send some wise words with your kids?
Yeah, you know, I think one of the challenges with kids, depending on what their age group is, younger kids especially have a hard time advocating for themselves because their friends maybe tease them. They don't understand how serious it is. And so
Yeah.
it's helpful for the parent of a food sensitive child to speak to whoever is in charge of this other gathering, whether it's a school festivity or it's at a friend's house, and if necessary to find out what's going to be served and to send the child with an appropriate allergen-free version of that food. You know, it's just a matter of education because they really have to learn to speak up for themselves. For older kids, it's a matter of knowing what's going to be there and making the choice that either they're not going to have it or they're going to prepare in advance by bringing something that they want to have that they can eat. Like if you're a teenager and you're going to a pizza party and you can't have gluten, bring your own gluten-free pizza.
Yeah. And I don't know if you have experience in bringing your own food to a party, but if you do, how have you perceived it? Is it like welcoming, or do they in general get offended by it or something like that?
You know, in the beginning, when someone is first dealing with food intolerances, I think people are perhaps a little hesitant. They're like, oh, you don't like my food, or oh, what's going on? And I find that a very gentle, I'm so sorry, I cannot consume that, and trying to explain to them what's going on. One of the things I personally have is a life-threatening allergy to seafood. And when you go somewhere and they put out, you know, a shrimp cocktail for everybody at the table and you don't eat yours, and they look at you, you know, and say, what's going on? And you explain, well, and you try and make it a joke, sort of, you know, I think we'd all rather not have a run to the hospital. So, you know, I'm allergic to this, let's not eat it. But when it comes to food intolerances that can cause bloating or hives or allergic response in some way, that's still a very uncomfortable thing. And so
Yeah.
just to educate them and explain, I really cannot eat this food, it will make me sick.
Yeah. And talking about that, could you tell us a little bit about if you are, for example, we have a lot of our users are celiac and gluten intolerant users, people. And can you tell us a little bit for the other people who are watching this, uh, what actually happens if they happen to be gluten, as it's called?
Yeah. Well, celiac disease is certainly the far more serious one. People who have celiac disease cannot eat gluten in any form. And if they do, while to outwards appearances, it makes them physically very ill, sometimes for days. It can cause swelling of the joints. It can cause mental fogginess. It causes extreme fatigue, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, all kinds of horrible physical symptoms. On the inside, where we can't see it, people with celiac disease, their villi, the little fringes on the inside of their intestines, are being worn down and destroyed. As they're destroyed, they cannot be replaced, and that impairs their digestion for life. So that's a very, very serious thing. For people who have,
could be replaced or grow back, or
they do not grow back.
no.
Once the villi are destroyed, they are destroyed forever.
Wow.
And yeah, that's part of why it's such a serious disease. Celiac disease affects approximately 1% of the population. A much larger and growing percentage of the population actually struggle with a condition called non-celiac gluten sensitivity. They do not have celiac disease itself, which is a genetic disorder. You get it because you carry the gene, you have expressed the gene for it. Non-celiac gluten sensitivity is where you do not have celiac disease, but you struggle with a large number of physical symptoms that come from consuming gluten. For some people, they develop almost like an arthritis. They get swollen joints, pain in their joints. They can get bloating, fatigue, rashes, eczema, hives. There's a wide range of symptoms that can come from that. And once you've identified what causes those symptoms, not consuming gluten and having those symptoms go away tends to be its own reward for not wanting to consume gluten anymore.
Yeah, I guess that would be like the ultimate thing, to know what it is and finding out that you can actually do something about it.
Yes, absolutely. And for celiac disease, there is a test that you can do because it is a genetic disorder. So it shows up on testing. For non-celiac gluten sensitivity, frequently the only way to really get a handle on it would be to remove gluten from the diet, all forms of gluten. So not just in your food, but also in your shampoo or your moisturizer, anything that says gluten or vital wheat gluten. And try removing that for a month, 30 days, and then try reintroducing it and see how you feel. Very often, people who remove it, when they add it back in, they have this flare of symptoms because their body has accustomed itself to not having it anymore.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, that's a good thing to know, to test them.
Yes.
Yeah. And bringing it back to a little bit more like the holiday thing. Do you have any specific tips on any dishes that are, well, it's hard to do totally allergen free, but maybe gluten free, since that's a big part of this community?
Yes, absolutely. In America, of course, and around the world, turkey is a big thing. And you have to read the label. Many of the processed turkeys are made using a broth or a slurry, and that can contain gluten in it. It also may, just to bring in another ingredient, may also contain MSG, monosodium glutamate, which is not healthy for you. So we want to try and go for a fresh turkey that does not have any added broth, does not have a slurry, does not have any sort of enhancements to the turkey. Fresh vegetables, obviously, and then cook those yourself without purchasing the prepared packaged versions would be a good idea. As I mentioned, certainly the cranberry sauce, it's very easy to make your own. And if you'd like, actually, I'd be happy to send you my recipe, which takes about 10 minutes to make, and you can share it with the community on the website.
Great.
I would be happy to do that. And then stuffing, or as they sometimes call it in America, dressing, is often made with bread, which of course is not a great choice. And so a really good option for that would be to use something like wild rice, or perhaps make one using a different grain like quinoa. And it doesn't come out, the same, but it's very delicious, and you can still put in all of the other ingredients, the sausage and the nuts and the, dried cranberries and that sort of thing, and have a very delicious.
And only put the nuts in if you have allergic, someone who's allergic to nuts. That's one of my issues.
Oh, all right, yeah. So that would certainly be something to watch out for.
Which also is popular, of course.
Yeah.
And do you have any, on top of your mind, any dessert tips?
I think desserts are a little bit challenging. One of the things I like to do if I've been invited somewhere, because who doesn't love dessert, is I ask what's on the menu and if I can bring something. And frequently I volunteer to bring a dessert so that I can bring something that's gluten-free. There are a couple of ways to take traditional Thanksgiving dishes and turn them into a gluten-free option. I'm not good at making gluten-free pie crust. So instead, I will take pumpkin pie and make it into custards and that certainly is fabulous. If you have a dairy intolerance, you can use coconut milk instead of regular milk. And then, you know, you serve it either in a big custard dish or in little individual servings, depending on how many people. So that's certainly nice. Or there are recipes for gluten-free cakes. Like there's a torte that you wouldn't be able to have because it is a nut flour, but it has no gluten and it's quite delicious. Or another option is, of course, something like a pudding, you know, a rice pudding or a mousse or something like that, just to have a little sweet after the meal. And that takes the stress off of your host or hostess, because you're providing a dessert that is allergen-free for whatever your need is, or if you want to be really nice, make sure it's allergen-free so that if anybody at the table has an issue, they can all enjoy it together.
Yeah. That's good points. And because I know your time is running out, and before we wrap it up, I would like to ask you one more thing.
Sure.
And it would be, how do you imagine IPIT might be of help in a holiday situation?
Well, I actually think IPIT is great in an everyday situation, and I share it with everyone that I talk to when I'm working with them. In a holiday situation, it comes in extra handy because chances are you may be buying special foods that you're not used to. And so scanning that barcode is a really great way to be able to be aware of what's in a product that you might not normally consume. The other thing that I love about what you do is people can be helpers. So if you're out shopping and you scan something and it does not come up, please take that extra minute and take those 3 pictures and send it off, because that you're just helping everybody else to be aware of what's in that food.
That's very true. And I want to take the opportunity to thank everyone who's sending in pictures, because it's we really get a lot of them, and it's a very popular feature, actually. Thanks again, everyone.
But you know, normally in everyday life, once you're used to buying the things you normally buy, you don't need to scan them every time. But during the holidays, you may be buying something you don't normally buy. And so that helps you to be extra cautious to make sure that you're avoiding the things that you need to watch out for.
Yeah, very true. And I know you have to run, so I'm going to thank you so much for talking to us today, and hopefully we can do it again sometime soon.
I would love to. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to talk with you, and I wish you and everybody else a happy, healthy, wonderful holiday.
Yeah, and IPIT wishes the same thing to everyone out there. All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Rosalie.
Bye.